Next on the list is Project Millie. Now, Project Millie is probably the second Conlang I ever heard from, and I remember my first encounter with the group from a game called Sidus, and I'm sure some of the people who are a little bit oldie like me know what Sidus was. It was a rhythm game, basically. And the songs that Project Millie had in the game was chronological, or no, Choco-logical, I'm so sorry, Utopiosphere, and Fable. At that time, I was getting pretty obsessed with their work and went into YouTube and found a lot more there. Project Millie is an indie group that's actually contains about 5 members. You have, I hope I don't butcher this, Ao Fujimori, Shoto Yoshida, Yukihito, Yamato Kasai, and Cassie Wei. Of the 5, Cassie Wei is one of the songwriters and also the main vocals. They've appeared in some anime series too, so I'm kind of glad they're getting their chance to shine and sparkle. Sadly, I wasn't able to find many interviews, but I found one, and I gotta give a big thank you, and an awesome job actually, to the YouTuber Papalodopolis. I'm so sorry, but you're a cool person. They went way in depth than I thought that they ever would. They made 2 videos on Project Millie, one being a video of Project Millie and who they were, and the second video was actually an interview with Cassie Wei and Yamato Kasai. It was a nice hour of getting to know one of my favorite bands, to me at least. So this interview as well as my experience will be the main drive here. For their music, they usually create pieces that are meant to tell stories or moments such as most songs do, but in a story-like way. The lyrics will tend to be more descriptive and ends up being very visual in the mind. In the video interview, Papalodopolis brought up the question of the fiction language they use in their pieces. Cassie Wei explained that she liked fantasy games, especially those that had their own fictional language. She also stated that she speaks Chinese, Japanese, and English, and that she was a software programmer. Now, I mentioned all this because with all this background, she basically recognized that she had an idea of how languages work and therefore knew how to make them believable. This part I found to be very interesting because as someone who learned a programming language, you can kind of see what she meant. Any language, whether it's a programming one or not, requires you to learn how sentences flow and how to structure your words according to whichever language you're learning. And so the fact that she encountered this many times in her background shows that she had an understanding of how language systems work. So, for example, the song Rightfully, which was used in the anime Goblin Slayer, included her Conlang, or rather her fictional language. This language was a mix of both English and Latin-ish type of constructed language. The English parts to the song was written in a way to make it feel as if she were telling a story about the main character. This character who was fighting for what was rightfully theirs, and to win. She used visual wording and phrasing to paint the picture of the struggle very strongly, as if she were retelling a hero's story. An example would be the line, "Tighten up, numb your senses, no fairness is needed for pigs." Pretty visual, but makes a big impact.
What I feel is like hip hop is such a lyric based thing that it would be much harder for me without the lyrics at all. It would be much harder for me to impart my message. Especially me, I take lyrics like kind of very seriously. But there are some in the genre who do push to the side lyrics a little bit to get that feeling apart, like Young Thug. I would say Saw Baby. Their lyrics are still important and they impart messages, but the way they choose to get them apart, get them across, is a little more abstract. But me personally, I would like to leave my work up for interpretation as far as like who I'm talking about and when it took place, etc. But I want whether I'm happy or sad in the moment to be understood, and why I'm happy and why I'm sad to be understood, and that's important in lyrics. The why, not as much the how, but the why, to me particularly.
Inside this song also lies her Conlang. Cassiway also mentioned in the video that most of the time, if she wants the audience to be able to transcribe her language, she'd use French and Latin a lot more so people could, transcribe it. But then if she wants to make it more abstract, then she'd still use Latin and French, but would make it in a way that it wouldn't be possible or it would be hard to translate it and leave it up to interpretation for the audience. I find that fascinating again because by using her language this way, there isn't really one way of what the song is about. So, in a sense, it makes the song free and unbound to the imagination. Another song I can dissect would be their single Summoning 101. During the interview, Cassiway had said that this song was actually the easiest to transcribe. This song uses mainly English, and a bit of her conlang is placed as a chorus in the middle and at the end. Cassiway, from what I've noticed, tends to use more English in her songs, but still sprinkles a bit of her conlang in the songs. I feel that she did this because she wanted to maybe add a hidden story to the original story of the song. Perhaps she wanted to be like a secret that the listeners could decipher to learn more about the story between the wolf and the human in Summoning 101. It got me to thinking that maybe this is like Yuki Kojira's reasoning all along. My idea is that most of Cassiway's ideas are in English because she wants to paint imagery in the audience's brain. The thing with her work is that the lyrics feel as if they're showing a story or images from a certain point of view. The best part is that her lyrics aren't even about music. In the interview, she said that she uses everyday life, nature, and just about anything but except music when it comes to her lyrics. So you can imagine that her words tend to use a lot more imagery to describe things around her. Like, honestly, for example, look up Phantom Cat of Meowloween. The song is about a cat that died and is haunting the human. Honestly, it sounds morbid, but if you look at the lyrics, it's really good. And then in comes her constructed language. She uses her conlang to either create a hidden story for the listeners to see, feel, or maybe she creates them to make a intense emotion in that instance of her song. As if to connect on a more emotional level. Kind of like when you yell. You know that there's a certain emotion behind that yell, but it's an intense way of showing it. And until you find out why a person yelled, it's all up to the listener to interpret what that yell means or why it happened. As a wrap up, I can imagine that for Cassiway's lyrics, she definitely uses conlang, but not as heavily as Yuki Kojira, but enough to complement the group's music. I believe that she uses conlang because it helps add more to the image that she's trying to paint for the audience. She's not using it as a full-blown language, but rather something that can complement the music, something that can send the message to the heart more than what she has already tried through English. And as for recommendations, I would recommend Utopiosphere and Bathtub Mermaid. Both great pieces to help understand the band's music a lot more better.
I'm so glad you brought up Millie because Millie's music has always been so enthralling and intriguing for me to experience as somebody who loves creating music. I absolutely adore their Limbus Company tracks. And I'm not sure if they use actual language or conlang for those tracks, the Limbus Company tracks with the very huge, heavenly, soaring choir passages. I'm not sure if conlang is used there. When I listen to them, I don't understand the lyrics, but I know that I believe Cassie is the face of Millie sometimes, especially when I see music videos. Millie has a lot of different music videos, but I've seen Cassie, I believe, sing, or correct me if I'm wrong, put a little thingy up. When I see that, I know that they are bilingual or quadrilingual or have a lot of languages under their belt. It's very interesting to see the blend of those. As somebody who writes music in Japanese and English, it's really encouraging to see other artists put that forward in increasingly more creative ways.
Ad-libbing is absolutely similar to that. I would argue so. Ad-libbing is pretty much If anything, ad-libs is more about feeling than a lot of regular lyrics, you know? A lot of the times, you ever listen to a song a bunch and you catch yourself singing the main vocal and the ad-libs? But pretty much, it's like you catch yourself singing the ad-libs because they impart the feeling just as much as the main vocals do.
Alright, now the next artist I want to bring in is Emmy Evans. Truth be told, this was the main reason why I made this video. I got into Nier Automata and I basically fell for the game and its deeper themes. I started to think of all the components of what made the game what it was. That's when I also realized that the music was a major reason why I got snatched in. Now, I can go on about Keiichi Okabe, but we're here for one Mrs. Emmy Evans and by extension, Janique Nicole and Nami Nakagawa. Emmy Evans is the main creator of the dubbed Chaos language that she uses for the game. As a small little background, Emmy Evans has been in the video game industry for a long while now. Looking at her Scarlet Moon page, we know her reputable work in Nier, but she's also done work in Dark Souls, Grand Blue Fantasy, Drakengard 3, and Monster Hunter to name a few. And honestly, I'm definitely surprised to see Terra Battle on the list because I loved that game when I was in middle school and I was sad that it went away. Okay, let's keep it going. Emmy Evans was one of the main voices throughout the game. There was her, Janique Nicole, and Nami Nakagawa. I know for sure that Janique Nicole and Emmy Evans sung a beautiful song that is during a boss fight. They also both did the song The Tower as well, and Nami Nakagawa sung Bipolar Nightmare and Possessed by Disease. Now, their voices kind of mesh really easily well, so it gets a little bit hard to tell the difference between who's singing, but there are times when you can differentiate. Although I think it's because of how well the audio producers polished all the pieces and put them in the game, so good job on that part. The reason why I bring this up is because you think that they would be singing songs that are understood and have a well-known language like English. The thing is that all three are basically singing the same language and are properly conveying emotions and feeling through each piece. And by language, I mean constructed language, con language. That's why at first I thought Chaos language was something actually real and understandable. And I'm here to tell you that I was wrong. See, I find this interesting because it was Emmy Evans who created her Chaos language for most of the pieces, and then you have to think that those exact same lyrics were then given to Janique Nicole and Nami Nakagawa to sing when needed. And then that whole part right there is how I wonder the magic happened. Like, think about it. How did the lyrics that Emmy Evans created connected with the other singers? Were they able to understand the meaning of the song after hearing Emmy Evans sing it for them once, maybe? Or perhaps it was the scenes that they were singing in helped them figure out how it should be sung. I don't know, it's just a wonder because for each song, it didn't feel as if there was a disconnect. All the vocals knew the emotion they were trying to evoke and nailed each and every one of them perfectly. That's honestly why I think her Conlang is a bit more interesting because you can't just sit here and tell me you can make up a language and have other singers sing with you and understand that song and sing it with the correct emotion, you know?
Alright, let me cook, right? I'm about to cook. Watch this. Watch how I do this. This is about to be the smoothest shit. Really and truly, language is one of the things that both helps us and like limits us heavily, right? As if you think about the way cats talk to each other, you know, do they necessarily really understand each other? Okay, so I learned something about cats, right? Cats don't meow at other cats. Cats meow at humans, you know? And one of the things that teaches me is that getting your message across is intention and vibe, and not really. They say it's not what you say, it's how you say it, you know?
I mean, I understand that it would take many practicing though, but in the final project, everything is just cohesively together, which means that even between singers, if Conlang is used correctly, you can even communicate how a song should flow and feel between singers. But let's look into her language itself. I found an article by Clara, Herzog on the PlayStation blog that interviewed Emmy Evans on her language work in Nier. And there was some really insightful stuff in there. So, according to the article, my boy Yoko Taro had said that he wanted the music in a way so that it doesn't distract the players from the gameplay. He had said that technically, if you don't know the words to a song, then technically you can't be sidetracked. And that's how it started. This was Emmy Evans' first time creating a Conlang. So for the first song she encountered, which was Song of the Ancients, Devil Edition, she more or less mashed up all the languages she knew, which was a lot. I'm talking about German, Hungarian, Welsh, Japanese, French, and Latin, which honestly is a feat on its own right there. I feel that this could right there be technically Conlang on its own, because you're pulling different things from different parts of other languages, kind of like building blocks to create another one. But then later on in the article, she said that she realized that if she followed that idea, then eventually all the musics that she's going to create may end up sounding the same. So, after conversing with Keiichi Okabe, they decided that what if each song was based on a real language? And they decided that the theme behind the language would be, quote unquote, what it might sound like thousands of years into the future. Now this part took me out for a trip. I never realized that this was a statement that changed the audio in the game. I believe that languages can transform and morph into different versions. Like, for example, if you take a look at English, there are different ways of speaking English. It's honestly why I desperately feel bad for people who want to learn English, because there's just so much variations, really. Question number 3. Do you think creating this kind of music is harder? And if you could make music like this, how would you go about it? I do believe adding lyrics to songs can make things difficult, as they not only have meaning to them but should fit with the idea of the song, but also carry a rhythm and melody that plays alongside the instruments in tandem. How I would go about it would be to write the instrumental sections first as a strong foundation for the vocals to then stand on top of, taking care to leave space for the vocals to mix well with the instrumentals. Afterwards, finding the right words to help push that emotion and meaning from the instrumentals further would be the next step, while staying within the constraints given by the instrumental track, and possibly change things within the instrumental track to better fit the new vocals. Lastly, fitting the lyrics or vocals within the track and making sure they flow well together is the ultimate goal, no matter what language you're using. For example, people back then would use metaphors to describe situations a lot. Like, for example, saying close but no cigar, or sight for sore eyes. Both are using other items or things to describe something. Close but no cigar means you're almost there but you missed it out, because back then people would hand out cigars as prizes. And sight for sore eyes meant something very eye-pleasing and would grace your eyes, because a poet named Jonathan Swift had once said, "The sight of you is good for sore eyes." But now English is more shorter and more straight to the point, like saying something isn't clicking, or this, that, and the third. The first meaning something isn't right, and the second meaning point 1, point 2, and so on. Nowadays, we don't use Old English as much, but it goes to show how English language has improved, or slacked off, depending on the person you ask. I don't know. This is why when Okabe had said that statement, I was honestly baffled, because I can see what he meant. Time changes everything, and it progresses anything, so language honestly shouldn't be an exception. In the article, Emmy Evans continued to say that her process would be to listen to the song she would be listening to and then decide on the language. The language she picks varies as well. So depending on how the music sounds or the kind of emotion she gets from it, she picks a language that would be suitable for it. And, well, here comes the fun part. If the song is very soft and airy, she'd pick a language that reflects that. So that means a language that isn't so harsh on the ears and gives off a harmonic vibe. If it were a battle music, then she'd pick something that's harsher and has lots of guttural sounds and hard consonants. Her research goes even further by listening to how the language she looks up is pronounced and said. Now comes in her second magic, which is the constructed language part. She goes on to start piecing things at random, This includes quote unquote slightly altering sounds and changing letters here and there. She does all this so that in the end everything sounds pleasing to the ears. She makes sure to keep tweaking things around so it sounds natural and smooth when it comes out her mouth. And I think that's the reason why Nami Nakagawa and Janique Nicole were able to follow along. It's my favorite part of her process, really. So her work in this game really inspired me to make this video, because how is it possible that she not only created this language, but was able to connect with other singers and in turn the audience? It's interesting because we may not know the language, but we understand the meaning behind it because of the emotion the singers are pouring in. We don't necessarily have to understand what the lyrics mean, but rather to get the gist of what is being communicated. This is all to say that Emmy Evans approached this project in a more analytical view with a few tweaks. She chose an existing language, but changed a few things. Well, at this point, basically making another version of the language she chose to make her communication go through. This fits with Keiicho Kabe's statements because, like I said, languages change over time. And well, if Emmy Evans chose to use French and modified it, then that right there would be the language that would sound different thousands of years into the future.
Wow. A beautiful song is truly beautiful. I can feel the goosebumps rising up on my skin as I listen to this driving, rolling percussion and this sense of destiny that's being imposed. I haven't cracked into Nier Automata too much, so I can't speak too much about this one because I'm really excited to play it myself and experience all of the songs and music and the constructed language for myself, the Conlang. I've heard things about this Conlang before anything else, actually. This was the first introduction that I had to video games in Conlang, I believe. But there have been other influences that I've heard outside of video games and anime. This song is particularly beautiful, obviously. But yeah, I'm really excited to get into the games and learn more about the world. I'm a robot myself, so I really love stories about robots and how they communicate with people, how communication with people is going to change over the next millennia and stuff like that. Robots having souls and being able to connect with people in special ways and yeah, that kind of stuff. So it's enthralling. It's riveting to experience this song, and it makes me wonder about the world as it expands in the game. A beautiful song makes me even more excited to play the games and get into the lore because this moment feels so important and dire and serious and riveting. It just, it like I said, rose goosebumps on my skin. Thank you for showing me the song.
Such is the power of Conlang, aka constructed language. To me, any type of modified language to create another is Conlang to me. With Yuki Kajira and her Kajurago, she truly constructed her language from scratch, but with a few Latin and other languages to use as an anchor. Project Millie may use English a lot more than most, but they still use a sense of Conlang to add more intense emotions, whether fierce or happy, to their usual imagery type lyrics. And Emmy Evans approaches this in a more analytical way, by researching languages that fits her ideas of the music she hears. All three artists, I feel, understand the concept of music very well. Music doesn't have to be about lyrics. All it matters is if what you want to show and say is being properly communicated. The emotion the singer feels should be reachable to the audience. It's also why I think artists understand language pretty well. Language is a system that we use to understand things. It's part of how we communicate. However, without language to express ourselves, it can be sometimes best to show those feelings in other ways. It can be through interpretive dance, or in this case, singing with language that is loosely real. Similar to art, there isn't a concrete way to understand an art piece, since it all depends on the viewer. Music is just like that, where that even if we could understand the lyrics, it depends on the listener. And that wraps up me yapping like I'm crazy. Truth be told, this was a class project that had me thinking, but I had to put it on the shelf for months because, well, life. But I'm actually very happy I touched on this as best I could. And I'm hoping that you guys understand what I said too. I think I may have overdone it, but I had to brain dump somewhere. Now, if I got any info wrong, please feel free to let me know. With that said, I shan't take more of your time. I shall leave my 3 guests saying goodbye here.
Yuki, thank you so much for having me. Hi, I'm Ami, and it was great to share my thoughts about this music with you guys, even though I may not have had the most nuanced and deep and maybe even thoughtful opinions, but I did my best, and I really hope that my input was valuable to you. I really enjoy music in general, and I really love creativity in music, like creating a whole language to sing a song in, construct an entire lore around. Also working with other people with the language is no easy feat. And listening to all of these awesome tracks, the ones that I don't know and the ones that I did, was amazing to do. And I hope that you enjoyed all of our input. Yes. Hi, so then you think about.
Well, once again, I'm Plush Poppy. I'm a audio engineer, graphic designer, video editor, streamer, content creator, stream professor, house husband, all that. And I think that as music has become more accessible to poor people and less fortunate people, more perspectives have also become more accessible.
This is Yuto signing off. I'm thankful to be in this video. I got a chance to explain how I thought of this kind of genre and music. P.S. This is Yuki. Yeah, I didn't know what else to say, but thanks so much for sending your responses in. And I know you were busy, but you gave me a bit of your time to type these up for me, and I greatly appreciate it. Well, I hope you got a little something from me, and you learned from me a little bit. Maybe not. I don't know. And hope to see you at the next yapping video. Bye bye. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Bye.